Not just living in the world of ideas, but actually having them transform how we live our lives day to day. And this is, I think, a big hang-up where people have with faith and finance, is they see them as two separate worlds. Finance should be absolutely lived through the lens of faith. It should inform all of our actions and decisions, economic, investment, spending, everything.
At the end of the day, Catholic social teaching principles are meant to help us think about how we can be charitable to others. And finance, when done properly and integrated with Catholic social teaching principles, also does that same thing. If finance serves its own ends, say wealth accumulation, then you're going to put the profit ahead of the person. And that, we would say, intrinsically disorders what finance is about.
Put a little thought here is that wealth alone is insufficient. The markets can be economically advanced, but morally bankrupt.
Welcome to the Ord Life Podcast. All right, Sean, you have a story.
Yeah, so we recently moved. And part of a new feature of where we moved to was an alarm system where we did not have an alarm system previously. And I had not tried to use it, had not tried to find the code yet. I thought I would leave that, for later because we're busy unpacking and everything. And I'm walking around and I happen to notice that the alarm is now armed.
Oh.
Randomly. To me. And this very mysterious change in the alarm system, I'm asking the children, and one of them tells me, we were playing with the launch codes on the keypad. We were launching the system. We're setting the system up to launch the missiles. And panic ensues, of course, because I don't know how the system works. I don't know how to disarm it. I don't even know the code.
But somehow they guessed it?
Well...
Oh,
or you can press there's a button that probably
for
sets
away,
it.
And yeah.
So somehow it's armed, but it's not. The alarm isn't going yet.
Yeah.
So it must be like the perimeter, right? So I tell them, okay, don't open any doors, don't open any windows.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I go and I find the instructions and I'm flipping through and there's like an installer's code. Great. Punch it in. Doesn't work. I'm looking through everywhere else. No other codes referenced. I'm looking through like our, house acquisition documents, no reference to a code. I message the realtor. He's like, we don't have one. Here's the message. Here's the number from the previous owner.
Okay.
I text the owner. I call the previous owner. No answer. And then the alarm goes off.
Oh my goodness.
So did somebody open up a
panic
window?
ensues.
Or they
And now, where panic had previously ensued, that was steps up to now. Extreme panic ensued. And just the thought, we're the new neighbors. This house is blaring. And it's just,
what
it's
time
so
of day is
embarrassing.
this when this is all occurring?
It's like 4 o'clock in the
Okay,
afternoon.
at least it's 4 o'clock in the
Not too
afternoon.
bad.
No, right? Not the middle of the
If
night.
it was like
Yeah.
10 o'clock at night, and I'm like, even more, a next level of panic would ensue.
Yeah, but I think I got to turn this thing off somehow. And I go up to the box and I see there are power lines and I take scissors and I cut
Okay.
the power to the alarm system, which, by the way, gave me a taste for, I felt like a cat burglar for a minute. Like, I could see, breaking in, cut the power lines, and then you're sneaking around. It's kind of fun. But also, like, a spark flew up and I realized, this was unbelievably dangerous. I should not have done this.
Did you find out if there was a battery backup system to it? Or did it turn off successfully?
I happened to see there was a battery. I unplugged it from the battery first.
Okay, good.
And then I realized afterwards, I think I could have just pulled the breaker. I didn't have to destroy
But then
this.
you would have to decide which breaker it was.
I could have just cut the breakers to the house.
So the whole thing. But then you would have now you'd have another level of kids going what's going on? It's so dark.
that's fine.
It's 4 o'clock, so it would have been fine.
Yeah, that would have been, in hindsight. But in the moment, obviously, I'm not thinking of the best way to do this.
You're just trying to process it one step at a time.
I just need this to stop now.
Yeah.
Took my garden shears and cut these wires.
Nice.
I didn't even wear gloves. I took no protection for slicing through power cables, live power wires. This was a terrible idea all around. But so 10 minutes after the alarm goes off, I get a message from the previous owner. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I forgot to give you the code. Here it is.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So are you going to reinstall the alarm system? What's the plan?
I think I can just
reattach it?
reattach the cables.
Yeah.
I think. I'm no electrician, but I have changed the light switch. A few light switches here and there. And I think that's possible. I think I know how
Yeah, I'm sure.
metal conducts
Just make sure the breaker's off for that particular.
Right, yes.
To avoid the
Yes,
sparks.
yes, that's
the
right.
second
Might
time
be a
around.
spicy activity.
Yeah. I don't know what'll happen when it turns on, but yeah. Yeah. So I think I'll just do that and then like wrap it in electrical tape.
Right.
So that's my plan. But also I realized like I don't know if we necessarily want an alarm system because this
The stressor of like say being back from a family trip, and then you're just kind of like we just want to get home. Like if one of the kids opens the door or whatnot and sets off the alarm unintentionally, but I try to avoid all that. I don't bother with alarm for our house.
I also felt really bad because like obviously in the hecticness of trying to resolve this issue, like the kids felt really bad, and it was the 6 and 7-year-old. And like they're just playing, like we're just setting the launch codes. Oh, it's so fun. We press the buttons and it lights up and it goes red. Just
Well, maybe you can still keep it as a toy. Just don't reconnect.
I
it.
told them they can do it now.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
much as you want now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the joys of moving. One of the unexpected joys of moving.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Shall we pivot to our discussion for today?
Yeah. Okay. So what are we talking about today?
We are, I believe this is our 4th part on the
Could be.
podcast.
I lost count.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a hefty
Continuing our discussion on Mensuram Bonam, the document published by the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences, PASS. Yes. On
You even got an acronym, or was the acronym always there?
the acronym is what I need because I'm like the Pontifical Social Science. Yeah. I was always messing it up. So PASS. And we're going to be talking about the various key principles.
Well, the categories of
Yeah.
principles based on Catholic social teaching that we should consider as investors.
Yeah.
And just to overview what they are. It's the human person and human dignity, the common good, solidarity, social justice, subsidiarity, care for a common home, the inclusion of the most vulnerable and integral ecology. And we're going to talk about a few of
first
these
four?
today.
Yeah,
first
the
four.
first
Nice.
4. Yeah, and it's nice because there's a little bit of a rubric that we can use the cheat sheet. But I figured the best way to kind of start out is just by defining what these different things are, and then maybe...
Yeah, because honestly, it's not obvious from the title. Like some of them it is, and then some of them it's really not.
Yeah.
I've read this. I still don't really know what integral ecology means.
Yeah, it's number 8. We can get to it at the end of this
Yeah, so we don't have to cover on this particular.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also some of them
episode.
some of them are not what you would expect from the outset too. So okay, so let's start with the human person, human dignity. AJ, let's give us
Oh my goodness!
give us your recap.
I was going to refresh my memory. The dignity of the human person. I'm just going to.
Actually, you know what? Before we even start there, so there's some like preamble before they go into this, and there was one line I wanted to call out that I thought was really, really good. It says, okay, so faith in Christ that opens up to the dynamism of God's grace is not simply an intellectual adhesion to revealed truth. To be salvific, it must be formed by charity, and as St. Paul taught, what matters is faith that makes its power felt through love. And I thought that was key to bringing out the point that it's not pious thoughts, it's not holy feelings, it's tangible, real-world change and impact through our works and our actions. That's the important thing, right? Not taking these, not just living in the world of ideas, but actually having them transform how we live our lives day to day.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, a big hang up where people have with faith and finance is they see them as two separate worlds. And there's very little, cross-reference when it should be, finance should be absolutely lived through the lens of faith. It should inform all of our actions and decisions, economic, investment, spending, everything, right? And we've talked about this before, but I just thought it was a really good call out before they go into the rest of it.
Yeah. And I think that tie-in is what ultimately does faith do tangibly. Well, that's what Catholic social teaching is for. When you look at that idea, it's Catholic meaning the church, social meaning how we interact with others and teaching what you should do when you interact with others. And so we want to be at the service of people. At the end of the day, the Catholic Church and Catholic social teaching principles are meant to help us think about how we can be charitable to others. And finance, when done properly and integrated with Catholic social teaching principles, also does that same thing. If finance serves its own ends, say wealth accumulation, then you're going to put the profit ahead of the person. And that, we would say, intrinsically disorders what finance is about. And the knock-on effect of that is it's probably going to lead to adverse outcomes by reducing people, but also it's probably going to lead to market inefficiencies because the market is meant to serve people. And if the market serves some ulterior motive,
or if we serve the market,
then at the end of the day, it's not going to be as efficient because what is, I guess, the maximum sufficient or efficiency is to serve others.
Yeah. And I think there's a slight nuance what you're saying is that it could end up being just super efficient without faith. But here's the problem, and you talk about this in the next paragraph is, so the quote is, reason always stands in need of being purified by faith. Religion always needs to be purified by reason. So they have to come together.
Yeah.
And so reason on its own can depart from a holy path, or it can be corrupted by the world. And so reason on its own can lead to just like a hyper efficient market, but a soulless one that abuses people.
Yeah.
And faith without reason, it lacks authenticity, right? It lacks justification. So we need them together. Our application to the investment world is to take the secular finance principles and run them through the gauntlet faith to be made better, to be put on the proper path.
With what you just said, I put a little note here for our podcast episode. I put a little thought here is that wealth alone is insufficient. The markets can be economically advanced, but morally bankrupt. So your call out in which, we need both. There needs to be a morality and a consideration of what is true and what is good in the process.
I like that. Let's use that to segue into what are the principles that we need to use when adjudicating investments.
Adjudicating, that's a good word.
Yeah.
You mean the ones we just talked like?
Yeah. Let's start defining these principles, and let's start off with
let's start with the first one.
Yeah,
AJ.
So the uniqueness of human life, in which there needs to be a respect of one another, which you kind of alluded to in terms of a love of neighbor.
Yeah.
And I think also a consideration of how God created us and for what, and for us to be fruitful into this world. So in the consideration for the investments that we consider, or the companies we consider, does it respect human life?
Yeah. Which goes back to that early quote in Mensuram Bonam that every investment either and basically is good for the future or forsakes it. Every investment is either good for human life and the flourishing of human life and the social benefits of human life, or it takes away from that. And so there's some questions for discernment here on closer to the end of this section, but it says, is human freedom enhanced or degraded? What, when we look at companies, do we think of when that question comes up? Like, how would we check if a company helps to enhance or degrade human freedom?
One thought that comes to mind is really coercive marketing.
Yeah.
Which where people kind of have a subtle loss of freedom, where they're being led to make decisions they otherwise would, that maybe are not in their best interest or prefer not to do, or lead to a lower quality of life, or like lead them into things that are the opposite of human flourishing, right? Overspending on luxury, or like, of course there's tons of examples, making people believe that they need these things when in fact they don't, or that it is somehow they're less of a person without them, which is false, right? So yeah, I think a lot of consumer, so there are some aspects of the consumer world, retail, advertising and marketing, that can walk down that path of taking away human freedoms.
Yeah, I'd agree. For me, the first thing that comes to mind is what behaviors a company enables. And yeah, to your point, if it's poor spending, that's a huge one. I'd also think about companies that benefit from supreme vices. Those are like your sin companies of alcohol and
Casinos.
cigarettes and gambling, that type of thing.
Or even smartphone games that are designed
Yes.
to be as addictive as possible.
Yeah.
Right? The gamification of the little hit of dopamine, where this is, just leading you more and more into this time waste.
Yeah. Like the purpose of human life is to explore, to go out, to adventure. And just wasting time like that is a supreme drain of personal capital, relationship capital, of time. And so I think to that extent, I think that really degrades human freedom. Because then it's basically the question of, is freedom the ability to do whatever you want or to do whatever is good? And these companies that take advantage of the definition of freedom being to do whatever you want will just appeal to vices and to the more animalistic side of the human person and the lower aspirations of the human person. Whereas companies that are doing really cool things and solving really cool problems, not only do they enable more people, this is the other side of the coin, not only do they enable a cool problem to be solved, but they also give an opportunity to employees and to managers to help solve that problem and to exercise and stretch their intellect.
Another thought I just had on, reducing human freedoms is the latest innovation with car manufacturers, right? That these things are so technical, you can't work on them yourself. You can't repair your own vehicle. It has to be diagnosed by a extremely
Proprietary machine of
proprietary
sorts.
machine. Right? You can't afford them unless you run like a specific shop. So you can't even do simple basic mechanics to these things.
And then also those who are general mechanics that may exist outside of the dealer network, not being able to
Right, even they can't even work
continue
on them.
doing their
Yeah.
job because they've been basically pushed out of it
Right.
because they don't have
Right.
the ability to even purchase these.
Yeah, and it goes even further where a lot of these things, like you don't even really own it in some sense, right? Like there are features on this car that won't be turned on unless you subscribe to them monthly.
Yeah.
And it's like it takes away from this idea of like what is ownership and personal freedom to do what you want with the things that you own.
Yeah.
They're taking that away from you. And I know it happens too in the tractor world, like with John Deere. Like you
That
can't,
was the exact definition that I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
Because I just heard a business case about John Deere and how that original value proposition for John Deere was that this is built for farmers for them to be able to wrench on themselves. And then a consultancy came in and said, hey, no, you should totally make this too difficult for farmers to do because then you have recurring revenue,
Yeah.
which is, I think,
From a business case, it makes sense.
well, yes. I think from a business case, when you have to constantly invest in a given software, then it does make sense because the software that you're paying for this month might be different from the software that you're paying for last month because there's new updates and upgrades and those sorts of things. So I do agree with it from that sense because you're paying for an ongoing service and that ongoing service is changing. However, if it stays the same and you're just creating an artificial moat, then I think that is an act of injustice because the person who's paying for the thing is not getting the full benefits of the thing. You just create this
and also
extra
it's
cost.
so much worse for farmers than for cars because you're probably located very far from a John Deere dealership. You probably need to do this thing right now because maybe it's planting season or harvest season, right? And like the implications are so much worse.
Yeah.
I do remember hearing a story about some farmer who machine broke down in the middle of plowing his field and it took 2 months for it to get fixed.
Jeez.
Yeah, and the ripple effect attributed to that, I presume the timeliness of the functionality of that particular machine to harvest the crops or whatever it may be. Keep in mind, my understanding of farming is limited.
Yeah.
I'm going to defer to Anthony, given that at least you have some sort of landscaping. And
Yeah.
AJ,
I
I
wouldn't
have
count too much
numerous
farming, though.
picture books on farming. Therefore, I know what I'm talking about.
the only familiar to have is reading The Ox Cart Man with my kiddos. If you ever read that with your young ones.
Yeah, if you want to lift some flaps, I can hook you up.
Nice.
I do have another question here, and it's one of the questions for discernment. Are negative externalities borne fairly by the beneficiaries? What companies or industries can we think of that applies to? Because there's one that just came to mind, but I'm curious
I'll
to know what
let
you
you go
think.
first because it would take me a day to think about this one. I think.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Or restate the question.
Okay.
In English,
I
please.
was trying to process that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are
Plain English, please.
Are negative externalities borne...
Okay, so bad consequences.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Borne fairly by the beneficiaries. So are bad consequences borne fairly by the people who primarily benefit from whatever activity is going on?
It's those scenarios where it's heads I win, tails you lose.
Yeah.
And I know there's been a few of them come lately. I have to think about it.
Yeah. I think right now, I especially, this is very topical, but with the Strait of Hormuz being closed and how many people in developing markets and emerging economies are suffering because of that, when certain parts of the West have not done as much oil
you can
extraction.
definitely see that in the view that's out there, that
Yeah.
we started this thing, we're going in and kicking the hornet's nest, but we have enough energy, so we're going to be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And who bears the negative externalities? It's the developing world. It's Asia, Sri Lanka, like these heavily populated, low income places that are really, really going to suffer.
Yeah.
Who had nothing to do with starting it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
that's not a company example, but it is a good.
Yeah, it
example.
is just of what's going on. I think that's the first thing that kind of comes to mind. AJ, any other?
For human dignity, how about the treatment of the worker?
Yeah.
Within those contexts, like the environment in which they work in, or the fair compensation by these companies on behalf of those who are.
Yeah, you can see it like with a foreign mining company that comes into some jurisdiction where, they don't take care of their tailings ponds, or like all those sort of mining issues, and it ends up being someone else's problem. Pollute the groundwater, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But whereas they reap the economic benefit, but those negative externalities become someone else's problem.
Yeah. I think what you're starting to allude to is the second principle that we'll be discussing, which is the common good. So
Kick us off, Anthony.
Yeah. So the implications for investment, as it states here.
What's a good definition before we get into the implications?
I always like your definition in which a company should be good, productive, and useful.
I like that too. I want to go with the Mensuram Bonam one here, which under the principle of the common good, it says, the principle of common good, quote, to which every aspect of social life must be related if it is to attain its fullest meaning, stems from the dignity, unity, and equality of all people and safeguards it. The common good indicates the sum total of social conditions which allow people, either as groups or as individuals, to reach their fulfillment more fully and more easily. Is that an adequate definition of the common good?
I mean, it kind of leaves more questions than answers.
Yeah.
Like, it is adequate, but in plain language, how would you reinterpret? How would you paraphrase that?
I would say a company has created a venue for human flourishing, in which for us to recognize and do great work, a great contribution.
Yeah. I think it's this idea that it's a net positive game. It's not a net zero game where if I benefit, you have to suffer, but that there is a way for us all to benefit.
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
great
Yeah, okay.
a great way to say it.
Thank
I
you.
think, yeah, because the human flourishing. I mean, technically, that's like the human dignity principle, right? In the previous one, where it says personal progress that realizes human flourishing, well-being, or dignity must apply to everyone. Like those are the activities that lead to human flourishing. But this one is really concerned with us all together as a community, right? That we can all have a net positive progress towards this idea of human flourishing, but together, right? That it's not that my advancement is at the expense
The individual
of yours.
versus the whole is
Right.
what you're is advocating. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. And so one of the questions here for discernment is how specifically does the community benefit? And so very much, to your point, is everybody who's potentially involved with this and affected by this able to benefit from it? Or are we just saying, nope, we're going in, it's going to be transactional, we're going to benefit, you're going to lose, we're seeking to get as much out of this as possible and leave you in as bad position as possible? Or are we saying, no, there's a way that all of us can do well here. We can bring jobs to your community if we're going to be going into it. Or we can solve a really interesting problem that you might have, and we're not going to exploit the fact that you have this problem, and we're the ones who've come up with the solution as well. Yeah.
I think you are seeing that more and more in Canada with infrastructure development, where, the latest thing is, let's say like First Nations opposition to developing pipelines through their land, is to make them part owners, right? And then they can more tangibly and realistically see the benefits of this economic development instead of it just, whatever, being a potential risk for leaks and accidents happening.
Yeah, which I think gets to the second question. Is others' participation excluded or included? So are you trying to bring as many people into the fold of this thing that you're doing that is good? Because if you're solving a good problem in the world, it's good to bring more people in along on that journey. If you have an interesting company that can hire more people, like bring more people into it, solve more problems. That's what the common good is referring to, is that saying that, we can all benefit from this thing and not trying to extract as much for yourself or for your own individual company, but really trying to cooperate.
Can you guys think of any examples? And if you can't, we can just...
I was going to say OpenAI. Originally, OpenAI was very much, we're open source. We don't want this thing to be for profit. We are primarily a research AI lab, and we're just going to discover and sort out and do all this. Obviously, there's a cost associated with running these data centers and queries and prompts and those sorts of things. So you have to pay on that end. But I would say I've been listening to this podcast by Acquired on Google, and part 3 of their, I guess it's going to be Alphabet. I believe it's titled Google the AI Company. So much of artificial intelligence took this idea of the common good, that it is just better that this thing exists in the world than it doesn't. And the investment is, hey, you guys want to be in on this thing that can really help human knowledge and human flourishing if used well. So I'm very much of the mindset that AI and a lot of its development has been under this principle of the common good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I have one example, and I'm going to relate it to this quote. So it says, when the economy loses its human face, then people become servants to money. And this is a form of idolatry. With the common good as the norm, money must serve, not rule.
Yeah.
And so the example that comes to mind is the patenting of seeds, where the seed becomes the intellectual property of the developer. And I think Monsanto is the one that I think this references.
The crops that would die after a year.
Where farmers and African farmers, poor farmers, could not replant seeds from the initial crops.
Stock. Yeah.
Which is crazy. That's just how they have functioned for millennia. And, at the expense of extracting as much as possible to earn as much money as possible, to prohibit them from doing that is absolutely activity at the service of money and not at all at the service of people.
Yeah.
And you can say, as all business activity is in some sense at the service of money, otherwise it wouldn't exist. But it can be both. Whereas that one is so tangibly at the expense of the people. And at the service of extracting as much as you can from them.
Yeah.
Out of sheer curiosity, and this is a tangent, which I like to do.
Yeah.
So in that example of seeds that are patented, or with farmers, I presume would gather seeds from their crops and then replant it. How is that even policed to make sure that doesn't even happen?
I don't know enough about it.
Especially that's a curiosity. I guess it's just a restriction of.
I imagine they would take him to court.
Wow.
And say, we're going to confiscate all this seed that you took from. As infringement on our property rights or whatever. Wow. Intellectual rights.
Yeah, interesting.
Which then again impedes on farmers to actually do the good that they're doing, which is a continuous crop for provision for their local communities.
Yeah, to feed people to basic need, right? Yeah, if you're taking advantage of that, that's pretty bad.
Interesting.
Yeah, I will say that one thing that I might disagree with is I don't think you necessarily serve money when you go into business. I think the best reason to go into business, and this I believe is McIntyre's idea, that you want to be really good at your practice. And a practice is anything that is integrated into society that many people do. So a good practice can be being a good father. A good practice can be being a good son, but it can also be being an aircraft engineer. And as you get better and better at your practice, you expand your expertise of the practice, but you also expand the boundaries that the practice can take on. Case in point would be an aircraft engineer. Take the Wright brothers when they first built an airplane, and then you compare that to today with what you have. Or an iPhone. You had a simple landline at one point, and now you have a mobile touchscreen device. As you hone in on your practice, you get better and better and better. And he says the interior or primary good of a practice is mastering the practice, and the external good is the money, the reliability, the knock-on effects that are outside of being very, very good at the practice. Though I will say the caveat there is a practice can be prudent money management. So I think depending on how you want to look at a company can either have their like at a company solving a business problem, their value proposition is being very good at the practice. However, you also want to make sure that the people who are meant to be good at the practice of using money well in the company, investing in the company well, keep that on its right track, which I think is how McIntyre actually defines an institution, whereby an institution is that which is meant to guard a practice. So by that logic, an institution is not meant to help a practice flourish, but it's meant to defend a practice from becoming something that, what would you say, serves money as opposed to serves the practice itself. Or in the case of a charity, serves the primary purpose for the charity as opposed to just becomes a means of, something else.
Yeah. And I think that's a good call out. I probably misspoke when I said your business serves money to some degree, because if I, take the words of the gospel, you can serve mammon or God, but you can't serve both. You can't have two masters. So, instead of maybe serve, it's, to be concerned with, or to have, I'm not sure the best way to describe it, but you're right.
Well, just to say, like, prudent financial planning within your family, right? Like, your family does not serve money. Your family is, as a practice, is meant to help raise good young people of upstanding character. However, money is a part of that. If you want to be good at your practice of raising a family, prudent financial management is going to be part of that. Same thing when it comes to a business, because, money, what is money in a business? It's the ability to continue working on your practice, right? It enables and facilitates the continued work on your practice. And so, part of doing your practice well is going to be
the continuation of that.
Yeah, the continuation of the practice. Yeah, so that's probably how money best filters into it. But if you make your practice all about money, then you've lost sight of it, and your institution or your company has lost sight of what it's supposed to guard against.
What do you think about, is money a good measure of utility?
I don't think so. I think it's an easy, and I think it's a tangible measure of utility, but I'm very thoroughly against utilitarianism, and I think John Paul II makes an extremely good argumentation against it.
Yeah, well, utilitarianism it's to do something solely for the utility of it, right?
Yeah, which means that
I just mean now, like, is it a good yardstick for measuring how the utility of something? Not that that's the sole concern.
Yeah.
But just in some objective sense, the more expensive this thing is, the more useful it is.
I think it can be, but I think the problem is that if people are operating from a paradigm of maximize utility and maximize money, that you no longer have people operating from this idea that is intrinsically good to respect people. Like, to your point, if you tell an AI program maximize utility, because this is how, what is it called? Some type of learning. What are the different types of learning in AI models?
There's agentic and there's generative.
No. Those are two different types of AI models.
Oh, okay.
But it's like when it can keep on learning, not iterative learning. I want to say it starts with like an R.
Reinforcement?
Yes. Yeah. So reinforcement learning is, in essence, you give an AI a set of, not even of objectives.
Parameters or something?
Yeah. You just say parameters like chess, and you say, all right, start moving pieces. And every single piece gets moved randomly. But you assign a certain number of points to capturing pieces, and you assign a certain number of points to capturing more important pieces. And then through 5, 6, 7, 8, 10,000 iterations, then the AI model starts to learn and say, okay, I get more points by doing this, and I get more points by doing that. The problem and the difference is that we as humans are not just meant to maximize the points, and the points in this case would be money. And so I think if you operate from a paradigm where you say, I want to maximize this thing, then things are going to be grossly mispriced. So I think it can work as a very good measure of utility, but I think the problem is that it can be, you risk mispricing. And then if you continue to operate from a paradigm of, this thing is priced at this, it's obviously efficient for it to be priced that way, then the utility drifts from what its actual value is.
I'm going to go back to your example of the Wright brothers and the innovation in aviation.
Yeah.
What I was going to comment is that I guess when you were a commentary, I thought of you're taking good work and trying to make it great.
Yeah.
And then the pursuit of that for innovation for the common good is a good attribute. So an effort towards like this being really excellent at what you do.
Yeah.
I see it also kind of translated, and I'm hoping not to make it a humble brag, but I see it as our daily work is that we have a good holding of good companies, but it's always revisiting. It's like, hey, how could this be better?
Yeah.
And it's for the purpose of the good that it produces for others.
Yeah.
And then the effort in terms of how that produces money for extra resources for others is just kind of a byproduct. But that's not usually the forefront attribute of our work. It's just basically, hey, how can we make things even better for the benefit of others? And we so happen to, all of us get to benefit from that. That work.
And that's why we have so much of a field of behavioral finance, is to understand why is it that people make these dumb mistakes all the time. And it's because their practice is making money. Their practice is not investing well. And sorry, I totally forgot the easiest thing that I could say about is price a good measure of utility or money a good measure of utility. I'd say the biggest example of where you can see that it's not is in a monopoly, where somebody can just extract as much as they possibly can. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually worth that much, but they're grossly mispricing it.
Do you remember? So one example came to mind, like a similar contradictory example to that statement is, what are they called? Veblen goods. Do you remember the
No.
term? That as the price of this thing increases, demand increases with it. And you could think of like collectibles or luxury things, or like as the price goes up, more and more people want to buy it.
Right.
So stocks are also the same way.
Which basically appeals to the emotion as opposed to its intrinsic value, and it's
Well,
its
and
utility.
it opposed to these other factors other than utility, because you can't say that as price goes up, it becomes more. It has more utility.
Yes,
No,
yeah. I was also going
That's
to
a great
say,
example.
yeah, I really like that, and part of the reason is because Benjamin Graham, who basically taught Warren Buffett how to do value investing, said that speculation is the definition of speculation is buying anything, hoping that somebody else will pay more for it.
Right.
And so, if you have a bunch of people in a marketplace speculating, then by definition, you've totally detached the underlying intrinsic value of the thing, in which case, yeah, money does by no measure actually equal.
indicate any utility.
Yeah,
or
any
something.
value, I guess, in that case.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do want to keep on talking, but we should probably not run this podcast too long. Shall we get on to the next two principles in our next episode?
Well, let's do solidarity first in
Yeah.
this one, because I don't really see the difference between solidarity and the common good. They seem so closely connected to me.
Isn't the solidarity is just basically keeping in mind the unity in terms of God's desire for us and us cooperating with it?
Well, so they say in the write-up, it's a firm and persevering determination to commit oneself to the common good.
Yeah, I think it's more of like an individual focus. Like the common good is that this whole community can benefit, but solidarity is
It's
saying
like the attitude we all have towards it.
Well, but it's saying this particular person, right? This particular person as an other, like you or AJ, but also as me. The first time that I guess I really encountered solidarity was in the 7 essential elements of a Christian brother's education, which is, and one of the points is to stand in solidarity with those marginalized by poverty and injustice. And so that idea of solidarity is that we need to put ourselves, kind of like empathy, right? Like you need to put yourself into that person's shoes and understand, okay, is this person's dignity being upheld or is it being neglected? Is this person being respected or commodified? Is this thing that we're doing unifying individual people or is it dividing individual people? And I totally just read off like 2 of the questions that were there, but I realized that it flowed really well into what I was trying to say. So yeah, but yeah, what do you guys think of solidarity?
I mean, I'm reading in the visual representation of it under the implications of investment. I'm drawn to the fact that it calls out the participation, enabling each to contribute what is needed to thrive together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it bodes well in terms of your call out of the individual nature of things, but it really speaks to allowing people to participate,
Yeah.
to use their God-given talents, as opposed to restrict them where they can't exercise. Well, I think kind of like with the farming example, with the John Deere example, like that particular circumstance and making things proprietary, doesn't allow a person to participate in terms of what they're good at, which is farming.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me if I was right that the common good, like we defined previously, and that solidarity is the commitment or like the actions we can take to support the common good.
I think so. I think it'd be like, yeah, similar to that. Or even one thing that came to mind was the common good is like the macroeconomics of CST.
Okay.
And then solidarity is the micro. So common good is a top down, what's like the best thing that we can aspire to in this situation. Solidarity is what's the best thing that this individual person
Can contribute towards
can
the
contribute.
greater-
Yeah.
the greater good.
What does this action
Yeah.
do for an individual person? Hence why it says, will this investment grow or fray social trust? Right? If a bunch of people in a marketplace don't trust each other, well, that's what you need for an efficient market is trust that I'm not going to be ripped off. And yeah, just the amount of time that obviously due diligence is important. But if you have a marketplace where 50% of the time that you're adjudicating an investment is based on, well, do I trust this company? Are the financial statements actually legit? Like that's extremely bad.
That'd be a nightmare world. by the
Yeah.
way. That'd be
Yeah.
terrible. So just to reframe it for myself. So let's say like, okay, we have a marketplace of companies. Some of them are working towards the common good. Some of them are not. And then as investors, our consideration of that is us expressing solidarity.
Yeah.
Like us thinking this is an important thing that we want to find in our companies.
Yeah.
Is how we can display solidarity.
Yeah. I like it. Any other points to add?
That's it.
All right. Thank you. I'm Anthony.
I'm Sean.
I'm AJ.
Thank you for listening.
This podcast has been prepared by Sean Gregory, who is a portfolio manager, AJ Sanson, and Anthony De Lazari, who are associate investment advisors for IA Private Wealth Inc. Opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the portfolio manager and investment advisors only, and do not necessarily reflect those of IA Private Wealth Inc. IA Private Wealth Inc. is a member of the Canadian Investor Protection Fund and the Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization. IA Private Wealth is a trademark and business name under which IA Private Wealth Inc. operates.